Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour, sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing, and that's Badass Wood Art. Remember to use promo code CT Pocket for 20% off any one item at that'sbadasswoodart.com. And while you're here, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're doing a giveaway at 3,000 subscribers. It's a custom Skol piece from That's Badass Wood Art. Ryan, Kwesi, and Kevin O'Connell today address the media. The draft is in a couple weeks, and people had questions, and rightfully so. A lot of them involving just the quarterback, right? What's going on with Kirk Cousins? He hasn't been extended. Obviously, he's going into the final year of his deal. Do you like quarterbacks in this class? We're just trying to like piecemeal together any sort of indication on which route they're going to go. Did you have any takeaways from their presser this afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a few different talking points, right? So, maybe we can dissect these by like topic, right? So, quarterback, number one.
Sure.
Um, Obviously, emphasize the importance of the quarterback position. Things that they're basically saying that they're being very methodical, where you have to
Yes.
have a plan, you have to have a strategy. There's a lot of different ways to get to that answer, right? And so no one way is the right way per se, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different avenues, and I guess urged fans not to basically box you into one. So what that basically tells me is, they are looking at the draft. They are looking at maybe trade options. They're looking at maybe Kirk sticking around, right? Maybe some other veteran that's around the league that
Yeah.
they may want to bring in that they like. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios here that I think could play out. Obviously, they're not going to tip their hand. I think I read something the other day or earlier today, just around like how they've been very hush hush
Yeah.
about the quarterback. Like they're not even tipping their hand towards which prospects they like. Now, of course, they've met with DTR,
Mm-hmm.
Dorian Thompson Robinson.
Tanner
They've met
McKee.
with Tanner McKee.
Yep.
They've met with Anthony Richardson and Will Levis at the combine, and DTR at the combine. And then they brought McKee in for a top 30 visit. So they've talked to a few, but there's no yes, for sure, we're going to move forward with this guy or that we really like this guy. So
Well,
I thought that was in a way, like an interesting way to kind of talk about the topic.
one of the questions approached to Kwesi was on the possibility of just addressing quarterback in this draft class. So let me read you the quote directly from him. He said, "QB is the most important position in our sport. Ultimately, these aren't things you decide in the moment. You have to have plans, you have to have strategies, you have to have different ways of getting to that answer. So we've had these conversations. They're ongoing. There are lots of different avenues in terms of addressing that position. And I wouldn't necessarily, to your point, Ryan, necessarily box us into just one. We do know that it's the most important position in the sport, and we'll treat it with that kind of importance." Can we glean anything from that? That is
Like
like,
literally the most broad and ambiguous statement you can make. I mean, honestly, it's just, I mean, but again, what else are you supposed to do at that position,
right,
right? Like,
right. They can't
can't
they
tip
can't
your
go out there
hand,
and be like, we want Richardson, and
right?
we're gonna try and go get him, or whoever the quarterback may be. It was interesting though, talking to Alec Lewis last night, um, at Lake Monster, and him kind of talking about that interview Kevin O'Connell had with Colin Cowherd. I just threw a bunch of names out there right there, but anyway, and what Kevin O'Connell kind of looks for in a quarterback, in a young quarterback, and that's a guy who's young, well, obviously young, a guy who's accurate, but has big field vision, who's able to feel those pressures, and just
And just see like the progressions and
yeah,
like, can somebody get to an open spot that's further down your progression? Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
and O'Connell touched on that again today, because again, these reporters are just trying to figure out, give us something, guys. Like,
Yeah.
like, what are you thinking? And they did a good job, at least on the quarterback part. Now, you said there were some other segments that we could have talked about. So, what's the second one on your list?
Yeah. It was pretty evident that the reporters wanted to hear more about Dalvin Cook and what's going on there. And,
And
you
rightfully
know,
so.
right. And obviously, they can only say so much. And, if you want to read between the lines, it seems like there might be some interest in parting ways. But uh, I think it was Kwesi's point is, um, they're very complimentary of each other, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how accurate that is. I feel like they're kind of similar at this juncture in their careers, but maybe Madison's a little bit more of a heavier runner, like can go between the tackles a bit more than Dalvin can nowadays. But he said they're complementary. So if they can try to work something out, they're going to, and they think that there's a role for both of them on this team. But again, reading between the lines, it kind of seems like, there's probably going to be some sort of departure there at some point.
Yeah, yeah, especially just given how much money is tied up between the two of them. They brought Madison back, and there's no way that Madison came back without some assurance that he's getting more playing time. And I just don't see a route that you get Madison more playing time without somehow, not getting
While
rid of
keeping
Kirk.
Dalvin happy,
Yeah,
right? Like,
that
because
too, keeping him
he wants
happy.
to eat, so it's
Yep.
like, yeah, it's a tough scenario to be in. So my guess is there's going to be some sort of trade or release at some point.
Yeah, speaking of another maybe disgruntled player, Zadarius Smith. It's kind of been quiet on that part. Obviously, it was reported earlier this offseason that he requested a trade,
A
or a
release,
release, a
actually, yeah.
release. And then he posted that pictures kind of saying thank you. And it's just been kind of weird. But Kwesi said today, just ongoing conversations. I guess maybe Monday we'll get a good idea if he shows up to voluntary OTAs. But yeah, any thoughts on that part there?
Yeah, I mean, again, another kind of odd situation. We have a couple of those odd situations, but here's the thing: is we have Diddy Hunter,
Yep.
who's also got his own scenario. We talked about yesterday with Alec. It just in terms of is he gonna want to stay here on the contract he's on? I think he costs us a lot of money on a cap hit, but I think he's only actually earning like 4 or 5 million.
Hmm.
So is he going to want to stick around for that, right? And then we have Marcus Davenport, who has kind of been a little injury prone, and then
Yep.
he's only on a 1 year deal, and then depth behind them. Patrick Jones was doing crazy squats this year, so maybe he has a breakout season. DJ Wanham on the last year of his deal. There's just a lot of uncertainty at the position, so I see why
100%.
they're trying to make something work with Zedarius, considering he's affordable, right? I mean, it's not like he is making chump change, but he's affordable. So I know why they're trying to make it work. But yeah, again, another scenario where, I mean, unless we give him an extension or something, I can't imagine that he'll want to play. And like
Yeah.
you said, we have voluntary OTAs coming up, so we'll kind of get a gauge of where he's at.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. And of course, if he doesn't show up, we'll all read into it way more than we should. But still,
Considering it's like veterans don't necessarily need to be doing it. So
yeah, I remember back in the day when like AP didn't show up to voluntary, and everyone was just like, "What the hell?" But then like a month later, Zimmer and Spielman were down like knocking at his door to come to mandatory mini camp.
yeah, well, and then part of that too, you look at the um, from the presser, they had mentioned like we had a really really good turnout last year at voluntary OTAs, and they
Hmm.
expect the same this year. So again, I think it'll be telling. I
Yeah.
mean, we will probably read too much into it, but it'll be telling of kind of maybe
Yeah.
where not only Zedarius but Dalvin Cook stand from that perspective.
Last big thing, I guess, in my opinion, with their presser today is, man, did they speak highly of that draft class last year? And it's been shit on by a lot of people, just given that not a lot of production from them, a lot of injury plagued players. Um, it, and I get it, right? They had 10 draft picks and just didn't get a whole lot out of them. But the way they spoke about them today, Caleb Evans, Andrew Booth, even Lewis Seen was getting. I feel like every opportunity that they have this offseason, they've raved about Lewis Seen and his ability to just kind of come back from this injury he had last year. Um, I think I don't know. Hearing those comments today makes me think that, like, yeah, maybe they are fine with just kind of the lower draft capital this year and just leaning on those guys next year. They specifically mentioned uh, Jalen Naylor again, and wanting to see that growth and development, um, because they get to see it day in and day out. It's yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and to that point, your very last statement there, right? It's we as fans watch it from afar, right? We see Lewis Cine busting his leg, and Asamoah getting limited playing time, and
Mhm.
Booth and Caleb Evans dealing with their own injuries. Ed Ingram, I think he played every offensive snap, so you can't really say much there outside of he did show progression. Jalen Naylor only getting on the field when we were really injured and kind of not putting our best effort forward at the end of the
Yeah.
season. So when you look at it from that perspective, we only see that, but what they see is every day they're working. Every
Every day.
day, you can tell that Asamoah is here for the off season because he's tweeting about Minnesota weather being bipolar and all this stuff, right? So he's here, he's putting in the work. We've seen
Yeah.
scenes, workout videos, and all that. And when you don't see that grind, I guess that as fans, but they see it in the building, it's got to be encouraging. But at the same time, what else are they going to say? It's their
Yeah.
first draft
Yeah.
class. They
Yeah.
obviously want to hype it up as much as possible, and they want to make everyone feel like they're doing a great job in their jobs.
Mhm.
So, I'll take it with a little grain of salt. I'll see it once it's on the field. It turns into on-field production. But yeah, and to that point, I think that statement came from a reporter asking, are you worried about only having, what is it, 5 picks?
Yep.
And
Yep.
do you anticipate getting more? And
Mhm.
he kind of had mentioned, well, we didn't have that many picks last year either, and we ended up drafting 10 guys. So there's different ways to go about it. We put so much an emphasis on the number, but let's focus on what we have. So yeah, interesting comments, and that was actually my kind of last point too, was just around that
It's all
that draft class.
it's always tough with these kind of pressers. You hope to kind of, be able to pull things from him. And we have in previous interviews. I think we got a lot from Kevin O'Connell's media session a couple weeks ago at the NFL owners meeting, or league meetings, I should say. Um, but yeah, this one, not a whole lot to pull from it. But the draft is 2 weeks away from.
Well, one other thing you can pull from this too.
Oh, you got something?
Kwesi is fit is always just on point. Like where can we get
Though
these
it's
things?
80 degrees here in both of them were in like jackets and long sleeves. They must just been pumping the AC in
Yeah,
TCO Performance Center.
I'm sure they do. But yeah, just whatever apparel he gets, obviously the public doesn't get. But my goodness, they're all I wish that I could get that vest. It'd be so sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish we could get get some apparel like that.
Yeah.
I need some new apparel. But
Yeah, me too. Me too. Mine's dated.
well, that's all we have for you today. So be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tomorrow on our YouTube channel, we'll be releasing an episode with Damian Parson of the Draft Network, talking about some cornerbacks and some wide receivers that he thinks would be a good fit for this team. And we'll just continue to have some draft coverage and Vikings coverage leading up the rest of this offseason. So until next time, everybody, Skol Vikings.